Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Dalton Brothers. I'm an optometrist that practices with my family down in Joplin, Missouri, and I've got a very interesting case for you today. It's actually my own mother, and we're going to be going through what we've been doing with her, which is treating her macular degeneration with red light therapy for the past year. Now, what I've got today is going to be very exciting. It's going to be something that very few have ever heard about, and even fewer yet have seen in person. So you're going to want to send this to someone that you may know, either a family member, a relative, a friend, or even a friend of a friend of a friend that has a family who has macular degeneration. I'm sure this is something that's been in the back of their mind. As an optometrist, I see and hear and talk and have these conversations with patients all day long, and it's something that they are always saying, if there's anything that I can do to slow down this risk of chance of me developing anything, of going through what my parents have gone through, what I've seen my friends or uncles or aunts go through, it's something that we have this conversation all the time. And this is for the first time something that we can show is possibly an option of being able to have an answer for this. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is a little bit of where this started. This is something that I practice, dry eye and aesthetics. That's my wheelhouse. Or the reason why I bring this up is because we actually had a clinical grade red light therapy device that we had in the office that we were using to treat all of our dry eye patients. And as of November 2024, a new study came out called the Light Sight Trials that showcased the ability, or it kind of posed that as a device that may be possible of being able to reverse macular degeneration with these patients. So we decided to look into it. We had like I said, we had this device that was already in the clinic. And so it's something that we started to reverse engineer what they did in that trial. And this is just to kind of showcase just again, one of the cases that we did, which just happens to be, a very high profile one within the office, which is a fun one. But I do offer vision consulting for clinics that are looking to kind of implement this themselves. And without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start here initially by just kind of pausing this on the fact of seeing what her retina looked like at her baseline. So this was back in December of 2024, and this is what her retina looked like. So even if you don't have any idea what macular degeneration is, or you've never heard about it, this is something that you can just take a look at this photo and say, there's just something not quite right about it. It just doesn't look very healthy. These yellow spots are the buildup of proteins and deposits that are left behind from cells that are going through their normal day-to-day functions, but they're not able to keep up with the waste that accumulates. And so it builds up, kind of like if you never exchanged the oil in your car, you'd see those things kind of start to gunk up and affect structures and other parts that were next to it. This is the biological version of what's happening here. And what we can see is that these changes, they don't move around, they get worse with time. And so we will generally see one spot turns to 2, turns to 3, turns to 4, but it's never something that we had expected to go from 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 or anything in that range. And so as we started treating my mom back in December, this is something that was the first and early sign of whenever we could start to see one of these yellow spots, which are called drusen, actually start to disappear. And even at this point, we were starting to ask ourselves, is this something that we're actually seeing this? We've been doing these treatments for about 3 months. We haven't really seen much of a result or an impact up until this point. But at this point is really where we started to kind of say, no, I'm pretty sure there is something that we're used to seeing her eyes especially. But we could start to see these changes that were happening right here in the central part of her retina. And it was really what we were able to latch onto and say, I think there's actually something to this. But now let's see what happened next. So at that 6-month mark, this is where that kind of maybe cautious skepticism kind of changed quite a bit, because at the 6-month mark, we can now see that there's these large areas, these patches of drusen that have actually disappeared completely. Now, whenever we're doing other scans, we're all obviously using a lot of other different types of machines to confirm this, but I don't want to overload anybody that's watching this program today because they don't understand it already. I don't want to overload them with things of saying, this is also confirming it's true. This is also confirming it's true. This is just, I wanted the photos to speak for themselves here, but we could see at this 6-month mark, we're already noticing some pretty large changes that are happening in the superior part of her retina over here of her right eye. Now, we continued this though, and this is where it took place. now at the 9-month mark. And this is where we start to see other parts of her retina actually start to get involved as well. So this is really, again, really excited to kind of see these changes now as these are slowly and gradually taking place. It's not something that we want any suddenlies to take place with macular degeneration in either direction, honestly. We want this to be a slow and controlled manner as best we can. But we looked over here and we've now started to see changes happening in the temporal side. So this outermost side away from where that nerve is and away from where the macula is in the center, we're starting to see some changes on the temporal side of that macula. We're seeing some changes potentially happening down here in the inferior part of her macula. Just all over around, the retina itself is looking much healthier. At this point in time, this is where she's also starting to notice improvements in her vision. So up until about 6 to 8 months, she really hadn't noticed much of a change. It's something that said, I may feel that colors feel brighter, or I may feel that I can see certain things in my life a little easier, but it's not something that's this radical difference. But once we started having those structural changes take place, this is now where we're at 1 year. So we took these photos just a few weeks ago whenever we recorded this video, and now we can see not only are the superior parts of her macula changing, not only are the central parts of her macula changing, the temporal's changing, inferior's changing. It's something that we're really having some dramatic results. But we can see here this wasn't something that was just an overnight success or an overnight progress here. It took a long period of time to kind of get to this. Now, in her case, I believe this was somewhere around, I would say probably somewhere around 30 treatments overall, kind of spaced around, and again, it's something that we came up with the protocol of what we were writing here, but this is something that we felt very confident at the level of which this was changing. And we started seeing this not just in her right eye, but we were also starting to notice changes that started taking place in her left eye as well. So her left eye, when we looked at it here, we started seeing these kind of early changes here, but I think in this case, we were starting to kind of question ourselves of saying, is this just an artifact? Whenever we take some of these photos, sometimes there's a little bit of glare or lint on the lens, or some kind of part in the reflection on the back of the retina that just causes things to kind of show up a little different. But overall, her left eye at that 3-month mark was showing very little differences. I mean, maybe if we're really being, really nitpicky about it, there's maybe the earliest change here, right here, dead in the center. But overall, no one would look at this eye and say, yeah, there's been a dramatic change. And this is even after 3 months of going through treatments. But we fast forwarded it again and started looking at now at the 6th month. And this is again where we started seeing some big changes in her vision, not just centrally, but there was an entire cluster down here in the superior or the inferior part of her retina, a little bit of changes that were happening up here in the superior side of it. And again, even over here in this cluster, we started to see this being broken down, but it's not something that this happened quickly or overnight. And I want to stress that this program here, this video, this is not medical advice. This isn't a clinical trial. This was one patient who happened to be a very important patient to me personally, but this is nonetheless a single patient, and I don't want you to think that her results are going to be yours or your results are going to be anybody else's, because there's a lot of different stages that are at play here. But we can start to see for the first time here what some of these can look like if we stick with it, and we see what now we're looking at here at 9 months. So 9 months now, centrally, again, we've had large changes in the central part of our macula. This entire cluster, again, is fully resolved on other different scans as well. We've got superior sections that have changed, and we've also got, again, this cluster of drusen that are happening over here on the temporal side, the outer side from where the macula is also starting to see resolution and change that's taking place. Really exciting to kind of see those kind of changes that are happening here. This is part of now where her left eye is at. So now her left eye, again, you can see big changes here, but it was something that took a long period of time. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And now this cluster of drusen on this part of it here that started back in December, really pretty pronounced and ingrained is what we've seen. But we're now seeing changes that are happening here, and her vision has now improved in both eyes centrally, as well as what she feels like in color, in contrast, in the way that she actually looks at things and is able to kind of stabilize her vision. So she's an avid reader at a pace above most of my other patients. And for the longest time, it was something that she really had to kind of let go of a lot of that, because the words were getting jumbled, they were getting distorted. It was looking like colored spots, dirty spots on the page. And so it was something that for the longest time she wasn't able to read. And now again, at this point, within this past year, it's something that she's able to return some of those functions. And it's incredible to be able to see witness that not only professionally, but also emotionally and personally as well. So again, I didn't want to go into too much in depth today as far as what the science behind macular degeneration or what red light therapy is doing. I think that those are conversations for a different day. But if you're a vision clinic, a vision provider, or a patient who would like to have a better, a deeper in-depth conversation about this, feel free to hit the comments, get engaged down below with the videos. Let's start conversations and let's start sharing this, because I think that if a lot more people start to see this, we're going to start to see a lot of changes and shifts happen, not only medically speaking, but I think just honestly in a preventative way. We may actually see an entire shift that happens in the way that macular degeneration is treated and prevented moving forward. So again, I hope this has been something that's been kind of interesting for you. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you about it. If you're a vision clinic or a vision provider that would like to see about introducing some of this kind of things into your own therapy, this happens to be one of 8 different protocols that we've written for. But I think in most cases, there's a lot of work still to be done over the course of the next few years. There's no doubt about it. But I do believe that this is going to be something that's going to be present in a lot of different practices, not just optometry, but in a lot of different specialties as well. Functional medicine, sports injuries, sports related medicines, a lot of osteopathic doctors. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to be starting to bring and utilize treatments like this into their offices. And if it's something that you'd like to have a conversation about what that can look like, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you. So I hope you guys are great. I hope you guys are well, and I hope you guys are staying healthy, and we'll talk to you guys here soon.